120 doctors failed to save the Mafia boss's son. Until a black cleaner's brilliant daughter worked a miracle, the entire hospital had surrendered to despair. The son of the most feared Mafia boss in the city lay dying, his body rejecting every cure known to science. 120 doctors, specialists flown in from every corner of the world, had tried and failed. The child's breathing weakened with each passing hour. Then, just as hope turned to mourning, a hospital cleaner's daughter, a young black woman with a forgotten dream and a mind sharper than any surgeon's, walked into the room. No one knew that her next decision would defy medical science and rewrite the meaning of a miracle. St. Aldrich's Medical Center was no ordinary hospital. It was the fortress of the elite, where only money and influence could open doors. The corridors gleamed with imported marble, and its operating rooms had witnessed more millionaires than miracles. But beneath its spotless floors worked a quiet army of invisible labor, the cleaners, porters, and cafeteria staff, those who kept the empire shining but were never truly seen. Among them was Evelyn Harper, a middle-aged black woman whose eyes carried both exhaustion and quiet pride. For 20 years, she had scrubbed these same floors, invisible to the doctors who passed her by. But her daughter, Amara, had once dreamed of more. Gifted in biology, she had graduated top of her class, only to have scholarship offers withdrawn when a clerical mistake conveniently favored wealthier, fairer-skinned candidates. Dreams don't die easily, though. They go silent, waiting for a spark. That spark came the night Don Vincenzo Romano's only son, Luca, was rushed into the hospital. A mysterious infection had ravaged the boy's immune system, baffling even the best experts. Media swarmed outside. Guards filled the corridors. Rumors spread. Some said the Don was offering millions for a cure. Others whispered he was threatening lives if his son didn't wake up. And amid all the chaos, as doctors argued over theories and failed experiments, Evelyn noticed something small, a discarded medical chart. This pattern made her think of her daughter's old research. That night, she made a call that would change everything. Amara returned to the hospital in a plain blue dress, carrying a small notebook filled with her handwritten notes from years ago. She hadn't been inside since she was a child, when her mother used to sneak her into empty lecture halls so she could learn from the shadows. Now, she walked through those same halls, still unseen, still unwelcomed. The senior doctors dismissed her presence as irrelevant, an act of desperation from a desperate cleaner. They had tried everything, antibiotics, antivirals, plasma exchanges, but Luca's vitals continued to fall. His organs were shutting down. Monitors beeped a rhythm of surrender, but Amara saw something no one else did. Beneath the data, buried in the test results, she recognized an anomaly, a pattern in Luca's blood that reminded her of a rare fungal infection she'd once studied in underfunded research projects. The strain didn't behave like any known pathogen. It mimicked immune responses, tricking the body into attacking itself. Her hypothesis was dismissed. A nurse laughed. A senior physician told her she didn't belong in a room of real scientists. One even joked that the only thing she was qualified to clean was the floor, yet Amara stayed. Not because she wanted to prove them wrong, but because she saw a child dying. She quietly collected discarded test samples and reanalyzed data on an old terminal in the janitor's office. She used makeshift lab equipment to test her theory. What she found shocked her. The antifungal drug being used was feeding the infection, not fighting it. The compound structure of the strain had mutated, turning the cure into poison. Armed with this discovery, she approached the board once more. They refused to listen. "Do you have a medical license?" They sneered. But then, Don Vincenzo himself appeared. His son's breathing had slowed, and in that moment of fear, power and pride meant nothing. When Amara explained her findings, the Mafia boss didn't see color or class, only a chance to save his child. He gave her permission. Amara worked through the night, her trembling hands guided by instinct and compassion rather than prestige or title. She recalibrated the boy's IV dosage, combining an alternative antifungal compound with a neutralizing agent she'd improvised from hospital supplies. Every move she made was under watchful eyes, some doubtful, some fearful. The room was silent except for the mechanical hum of machines. The Mafia boss stood by the door, motionless, as his son's heart rate dropped to dangerous levels. Every second felt like an eternity. Amara's heart pounded, but she refused to look away, and then something changed. The flatline rhythm began to flicker. Weak, uneven breaths filled the air. The monitors displayed small, hesitant spikes, signs of life returning. Nurses gasped. A doctor dropped his clipboard. Amara stepped back, tears forming as Luca's breathing steadied. The impossible had happened. The boy was alive. By dawn, the hospital corridors buzzed with disbelief. The specialists, men and women with decades of accolades, had failed. Yet a cleaner's daughter, denied opportunity and dismissed for her skin color, had done what no one else could. Don Vincenzo approached her silently. The man feared across nations bowed his head, his voice trembling with gratitude. For the first time in her life, Amara was seen, not as a cleaner's daughter, not as a charity case, but as a savior. In the weeks that followed, news spread like wildfire. Black woman saves Mafia boss's son after 120 doctors fail. It became a global headline. Some called it a miracle, others called it divine irony. But for Amara, it wasn't about fame or redemption. It was about justice long denied. She was offered scholarships, research grants, and even government contracts. Yet she never forgot where she came from. Her first act was to create a foundation for underprivileged black students in medicine, those who were told no because of who they were or where they came from. The hospital, once proud of its elitism, was forced to confront its hypocrisy. A plaque was installed in its main corridor. In honor of Amara Harper, whose brilliance and compassion saved a life and reminded us that talent knows no color. But perhaps the most powerful moment came months later, when Evelyn walked through that same hallway, now spotless as always. She paused beneath her daughter's plaque and smiled quietly. She had spent her life cleaning away others' messes, but her daughter had cleaned away the world's prejudice, if only for a moment. As the sun filtered through the hospital windows, Evelyn whispered a prayer of gratitude, not for wealth, not for recognition, but for justice in the form of her child's light. Because sometimes, the most incredible miracles aren't born from power or privilege. They come from those the world chooses not to see, and maybe that's the real cure humanity's been searching for all along.